This week in the PNFL. I'm your host, Mark Hill, and we have Dean Chambers here with me today. How you doing, Dean?
Good. How are you?
All right, yeah, I kind of flubbed that opening, so yeah, I was there. It's kind of faded, and since we have Mitch out on vacation, we have Mister 200 in the house, James Bloomer. How you doing, James?
Great.
All right. I'll be the first one to say congratulations on your 200 win. It may take me 20 years to get to that point, but I think you got there a lot quicker than me. So,
Yeah, congrats. And
yeah.
Mark and I are working on catching up to you.
Yep. So,
No, never.
yeah. So
Given this
before we get into the
two,
show and jump into this, I want to touch base real quick. You guys, I mentioned via email that I was out for medical reasons, and a couple of people had reached. Actually, thanks a lot, guys, for everyone that came in there and sent me messages, private messages, and comment, even in groups. Um, just know that I do appreciate the wishes you guys gave me, and in today's society, I think people don't thank others enough. So, anywho, now we are going to go into our week 6 games. We're going to have a middle segment talking about, I believe it was, what were we talking about, guys? The question that was on the listed on the forum. Have James take off on that a little bit. And then we're going to talk about the week 7 games. There are some teams that are out there hurting right now, me being one of them, and some others that are teetering out there. But we're going to cover all of that. So, jumping into the games for week 6, the first game on the list, we have Washington hosting the Jets, and I guess some people would consider it an upset. Washington ended up taking this game 39-24. We are going to start this one off with Dean.
yeah, I think the issue with this game is there was one turnover by each team, but then the Jets had four punts blocked by Washington special teams, and those are like turnovers, and those all led to scores. And the result is what you get here. Although it is a reflection of the solid defense by Washington that the Jets were punting 6 times and 4 of them were blocked. So it is, you know, yes, the punts did lead to the punt blocks did lead to scores, but this was solid Washington defense that set that situation up and created that dynamic. So I think many of us expected the Jets to win this game, even though Washington started the season 5-0 and looks very good. And I'll also point out that with this game, we now only have one undefeated team left because these were the remaining two undefeated teams of 5-0. So one of them had to lose. Now we only have a single undefeated team left.
Okay. James, what'd you see?
The block punts, the big thing is it helped Washington jump out to an early lead, which kind of put the Jets having to pin their ears back a little bit. So that could have been a help to Washington's defense. But the four punt blocks actually all turned into touchdowns. So that's 28 points off of punt blocks. So that was definitely huge.
Yeah.
Yep, I agree. Next
And keep in mind,
game,
when
go ahead.
gets off a big lead, it puts the other team's offense into a different place in their profile. And I think that's a spot that the Jets are not familiar with being in very often, being like down by a couple scores. So that can lead to some different results as we saw.
Yep. Next game we have LA hosting Indianapolis, and LA ended up taking this game 28-19. James, what do you got?
This game was pretty interesting. Indianapolis kind of was playing it tough. They had a big interception at the end of the half that ended up leading to, I believe, a Los Angeles score, if I remember right. And there was also a block towards the end of the fourth quarter, I believe it was, that led to Los Angeles putting another score in. So the Colts were actually more in this game than the score actually looks, but it definitely was an interesting game to watch.
All right. Dean.
Yeah, I believe I picked the Colts to win this game, even though Indianapolis seemed to be playing better lately. But it was some pretty good overall offense, mostly passing by the Chargers. They had nearly 400 yards in passing, so they're pretty effective in moving the ball. The defense had some key stops, including that interception. So this is a solid win, and I think right now I would say that LA is probably favored to win the always hotly contested AFC West.
Yeah, that's true. That's always in contest over there. But I think Mitch will have something to say about that. But it's it's going to be interesting to see how that goes down the wire. Next game we have Jacksonville hosting New England, and I do believe pretty much everybody was predicting that it was going to be New England to take this, but that was not the case. As Jacksonville came back, went down to or went up into New England territory, with Captain Kirk being player of the game and player of the week, winning this game 28-13. Dean.
Yeah, 2 points I'm making this game. One, Jacksonville always seems to play New England very tough, and this year New Englanders looked pretty good, but they still didn't beat Jacksonville. And yeah, Kirk was 30 of 39 for 290 yards, 77% completions, 4 touchdowns, and no interceptions. So that's ultimately what made the difference here. And they had almost 34 minutes time of possession. So, solid offense that ate up the clock and scored. And that's what did it. That's what made the difference.
James.
I think Jacksonville played a wonderful defense. If you look at the passing yards, 115 of the yards came on 2 plays for New England. So it was 2 big plays that kind of kept New England in the game. But Jacksonville did a really good job on defense against New England.
Okay. Next game we have on our list, we have Pittsburgh going into Minnesota to play the Vikings, and real good game, came down to one possession as Minnesota ended up taking this game 35-28. James.
There was one key thing that happened in this game that I was watching. If you didn't watch it, you wouldn't have seen. But Pittsburgh went for it on their own 38 on fourth down and failed, which ended up leading to an early touchdown for Minnesota. I think that might have been a big turning point in the game. If you look at the stats, it looks like Pittsburgh led in yardage, Pittsburgh led in first downs, they led in time of possession. So it looked like things like that might have led to a little bit of it.
Okay.
The one thing that I will say is check your profiles, because the Pittsburgh had 4th and 4 on the goal line at the end of the game, down by a touchdown here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, down by 10 points, and they actually ended up kicking the field goal instead of trying to put in the touchdown.
Yeah, as I'm finding out, those it comes down to those particular real fine details as far as looking at your profiles. I think we did that with the first game between Mitch and Dean, and we saw at the end of the game where Dean should have been able to walk off of that one, but as Dean mentioned, it was just looking at the final pieces of his of the profile, the coaching profile. So, Dean, what do you have to say about this?
Yeah, a couple of points. I think a lot of teams are getting very aggressive about going for it a fourth down. They almost, especially 4th and 1, they think it's automatic. And I think maybe some teams need to focus a little bit more on stopping that stuff defensively, because when you stop these fourth down conversions, they call it a turnover and downs, and it really is like a turnover. And yeah, these stats do make it look like Pittsburgh won, but Minnesota, got the job done and scored when it had to, and they managed to come out with a win. And they needed it, given the standings in the division.
Right. All right. The game of the host. We have Detroit going into Atlanta for a matchup, and Detroit walking away with a 26-17 win. We are going to start with the host. Dean, what happened?
What happened? What did happen? Defense. The defense was just not very good, and the Detroit offense was certainly better than the Atlanta defense, rather. And although 17 points is not a whole lot to score either, Detroit played pretty good defense, and I can't say it surprised us. I thought I had a good chance of winning this game, but it's not a surprise either, especially with the way we're talking about the same defense that gave up 49 points to Washington in the game that we watched. So it's it's tough to win when if you're not playing better defense than that.
James, so how the comments on the game? What's your comment on this?
I considered I got really lucky there because Atlanta did jump on a little bit of a lead there and going into, I believe it was the third quarter. And then once I got the lead, it basically both offenses just stalled. I had a 3-point lead for the longest time until I finally drove down and scored the final touchdown. But I was really worried once the offenses started to stall, and it's like I'm in trouble now because I can't move the ball, and he wasn't moving the ball either. So just kind of both defenses took over in the fourth quarter until the final minutes.
You just locked it down from there. Next game we have Chicago hosting New York, and actually, sorry, New York hosting Chicago. Sorry, and Chicago ended up taking this one 32-10. James, what do you got?
When I was watching this game, one of the things I noticed is the Giants kept getting in second and third and longs. Like they either had a penalty or a sack, either on first or second down, and it basically killed their offense. They were basically in third and long most of the day, so it was really hard to convert.
Mm-hmm. Dean, what do you got?
Yeah, that's a good point because the Giants went 5 of 15 on third down conversions, so they went for fourth down twice and got both of them. But but the Chicago defense is very good at containing their running game. Freeman had 53 yards. Barkley had 34 yards. That's 87 yards from two very solid running backs. I mean, that's and Daniel Jones completed 17 out of 36 passes. So a lot of incomplete passes. He threw an interception as well. This is just really solid. Chicago is known for its offense, but it played excellent defense here, and that really made the difference, I think, in this game.
Yeah, I agree. Next game, we have New Orleans going into the desert to go play Vegas and ended up walking out with a 20-12 victory on this one. We are going to start with James on this one again.
This game, if I remember, it looked very one-sided for the Saints. They tended to move the ball pretty well. Fourth down was a big thing. They went for a fourth down again. This is another time where Saints fumbled the ball, and the Vegas got the ball for fumbled when the Saints were about to score, but then they ended up turning it down on fourth downs, and the Saints ended up converting it to a touchdown early in the game, which ended up leading to a pretty much dominant game until late.
Okay. Dean, what do you got?
Yeah, this is a case where the Raiders' defense wasn't that bad, but their offense hardly showed up. Total of 281 yards, only 40 yards of rushing, 241 yards of passing, and that just isn't getting the job done. And again, I don't know that you have much of a chance of winning if your offense is only scoring 12 points.
Yeah, I got to put more points up there. So, but hey, you're talking about a guy who can't really talk right now. As we move into the next game, we have the boys from the Pacific Northwest with their fan base with the bags over their head going down to the Bay Area to play San Francisco. And San Francisco, being less than hospitable, handed Seattle a 28-16 defeat. Dean.
Well, in real life football, this is quite a rivalry. The Seahawks fans can't stand the 49ers, and the 49ers fans can't stand the Seahawks. It's a pretty big game. I saw some promising moments for the Seattle offense where Seattle moved the ball and scored, but the defense certainly had some weaknesses that I'm sure the coaching staff will be working on, and San Francisco managed to score four touchdowns and take advantage of that. So this was a tough loss, but Seattle is going to win some games this season. I have faith.
All right. James, what's going on
Well,
in the Pacific Northwest?
Seattle looked really good most of the game, except they had a key interception when they were driving down at the end of the first half that Niners didn't convert on, but it let them go into the game 7-7 instead of Seattle being up going into the half. And then they stayed in the game for most of it. Wilson getting hurt, you can see, made a big difference because if you look at Wilson was completing 68% of his passes, Hurts only completed 40. But then you get towards the end of the game, Seattle had the ball and was starting to drive, and then they threw a key interception to San Francisco, which allowed them to get that final touchdown to put it to a two-score game.
As the woes continue up north. So,
Sometimes the score in a game like this makes it look less close than it really was.
Yep.
oh, the
Especially when you
last,
have
the
a
last
big
score. Yeah.
like James just mentioned.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, so for the last game of week 6, we have Kansas City hosting Anaheim, and Anaheim ended up taking a defeat by KC by the score of 20-10. James.
This is another game that a block punt played a big key into. There's also a huge goal line stand, I believe, that Kansas City had that kept Anaheim out of it. So it was a lot closer game than what it looks, but Kansas City definitely played tough. But if you look at the stats line, they're pretty much dead even across the board. Anaheim scored more yards, had more first downs, didn't do as well on things. But if you look at there, Anaheim went for 2 for 4 on fourth downs, where Kansas City actually converted all their first downs at the one they tried, fourth downs.
Okay. Dean, what do you got?
Yeah, I thought Anaheim was generally pretty tough in this game, but those block punts were a big factor. Again, they're like turnovers, and they came at wrong times and, helped give Kansas City some momentum. So, this was a tough loss, but, you could see that they definitely tried. And, I had a few things happen differently. The Rams could have possibly won this game. It actually is closer than the score shows. So, but Kansas City is not easy to beat. We saw that earlier this season, the other game we watched.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. So, as we rounded up the week 6 games, definitely as we look at the standings, it's definitely you're seeing where the cream is and where it is not. So, going into our second segment, where we had a conversation in pre-show and regarding the forum question that was listed on there. So, what we're going to do, we're going to open this up with James discussing our forum question. I'm trying to pull it up here right now, and for some reason, it is not opening up for me right now. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna go ahead. One of you guys save me, James. We were going over. It was a scouting. It was over the scouts.
It's why not to trade your first round picks.
Yes, why not to trade the first round picks? There it is. All right, it just loaded.
Yep.
Up. Yep. So Go ahead. Floor is yours, Mister 200.
Um, I'll let most of you guys read it. The basic breakdown is if you're not one of the 5 or 6 teams that makes the playoffs every year, it's very unlikely that you're going to make the playoffs back-to-back years. That is kind of designed that way in that your schedule is determined by how well you do. So if you're one of the top 2 teams in your division, you're playing the top 2 teams in the other divisions in the other conference. So if you were playing a last place schedule, you've got a better chance of winning the games because you're playing the bottom of the divisions. But it's kind of a breakdown of like how people are doing what most the same people are making out of the first round of the playoffs. You're getting basically the gist of it is you're not if you're not a team that's consistently getting out of the first round or you're not one of these teams, realize that you're probably not going to make the playoffs. And if you do, you're probably going to lose in the first round. So be careful trading those first round picks because the Jets had the first round pick in the draft last year, and it looks right now that Chicago's got a good shot at the first pick in the draft this year. So I mean, you could have back-to-back Super Bowl teams having the first pick in the draft, and those teams do not need that talent.
All right. So I guess the question is, I'm going to ask a question to you, and then I'm going to have Dean jump in. So when people are trading their draft picks, because I think a lot of coaches have done it, I've done it. I tried to give away my first rounder. At least I want to hold on to that. They look at it thinking they're going to make that big splash or at least do something to turn around. But I'm sure you probably know one player is not going to turn your whole team around on a dime. Would you agree?
Yeah, it's where people misunderstand what Jerry's saying. Jerry isn't saying that the ratings are going, getting better players is going to guarantee you a win. It's just like when you're at that 50-50 mark, that's when it's going to make the decision. When it's close, when you're like it could go one way or the other, that's when the talent's going to make a difference. If you're coaching and you're consistently losing, you're only winning 5, 6, 7 games, you're probably going to consistently. That's probably where you're going to be, regardless, except for a fluke year here and there. And trust me, you can even have random games. The example I gave that I had happen to me a long time ago is I played Kansas City back to back when I was in Oakland, and we both used the same profile, and it was a 62-point difference between the games. I think I lost one game like 32-0, and then won the next game by 30 points or something like that. So I mean, there is still randomness to this thing, but it really comes down to where you're at coaching wise, and we have some really good coaches in this league that are hard to beat.
Oh, yes, I know. Dean, jump on in here. What's your take on this?
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. But I think the idea that we've heard some say that the ratings are so close, it's like there's little difference. I think that's kind of underestimating how important those differences are. And I think a lot of what Jerry's been saying is true, and that a team that their players are maybe a couple points better per player across the board will have some an advantage. It doesn't guarantee that they're going to win, but when you combine solid player talent, as Jerry has done with putting together good game plans and profiles, it makes that team tough to beat. Now, I'll also note that I posted something on the forum that's kind of a related topic. I posted a look back at the cornerbacks that were drafted in the 2040 draft 3 seasons ago. And I had drafted 3 of them, and it's interesting, none of those 3 are on the roster. The one I drafted in the second round, I look back on it now, and I wish I had made a better choice. That player probably wasn't. I mean, it was kind of a weak pool in general in cornerbacks, but there were some better choices, as I noted at the bottom of that post. And then the other 2 cornerbacks, basically, ultimately, all 3 of those players ended up getting traded away, and there were better cornerbacks that I should have drafted. So I think, while it's important, the point that James is making, especially not trading like first-round draft picks, unless you really get solid value for them, and it's better for your team to trade them than to keep them.
Mm-hmm.
But we should be very careful about trading draft picks in general, and then not only not trading them, but then I think we all need to look at how well are we doing and what players we select with those draft picks, because any one of us can do this. Go back and look at one of your drafts from 2 seasons ago, 3 seasons ago, 4 or 5 seasons ago. Look at the players you drafted. How many of them are still in your roster? How many of them did you keep? How many of them did you trade? Some players are drafted fifth and sixth round by some teams. They're not even in the league anymore. They were cut. They were released. They end up disappearing in the mysterious retirement or whatever the league files do when when Rich hits the start new season button and players disappear. So many times I think it's easier to make, even though we have all the ratings in front of us, the potentials and the actuals, and we calculate what percent of whatever they are and how many points they need to gain in training camp before they get maxed out and whatever. It's still easy to make mistakes and ultimately drive players that don't really pan out and don't really become long-term players or even starters or role players on our teams. So, all of that are things that we need to think about in how we put our rosters and teams together.
Okay, that is an interesting way to look at it. I'm actually looking at the contract file and looking at the draft picks as we're looking up for the next season or the upcoming season, and I see that I made a trade on my draft pick as my first rounder as well. But I also see that there are a lot of other individuals out there that have traded theirs away. Just looking at it, I see one, two, three, four, five teams that have traded away their first round pick for next season. I see one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight teams that traded their second round pick. And I see one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight that traded their third round pick. So I'm not going to go through the rest of them.
But
But
A lot of picks being traded.
the thing I will say is the one good team that traded their first round pick is the one that swapped with you for yours. So it's Chicago and you that swapped first round picks.
yeah,
So that was the one team that had a winning record when I posted this, that had swapped it. Everybody else had traded it to a team with a better record.
right. Yeah. So we swapped it, and looks like I'm trying to prevent them from getting the number one overall. So I got to kind of turn that around a little bit to give them much further pick down the line. Uh, I am sure that he is definitely cheering on my team or my opponent. So any other comments on this as we come to close this
Well,
up, guys?
my first round pick would be cheering for my team to lose some more games this season as well.
Mm, yeah. Who did you? Yeah. Oh yeah, Mitch. Definitely. Yeah. He'll
Yeah,
be playing
someone
cheerleader.
is on
So
vacation.
yep, Mr. Vacation Boy. So there was one other
So what you're
question. Go ahead.
so just before you go, everybody on this show has traded their first round picks, just so you know. Because mine's
Yes.
in Washington.
Yes, I was going to comment on that too as I see it. Everybody, this one, yeah, Mitch is the only one. Well, he's not here, but he's the only one that's holding on to his. So yeah, can't prime away.
Well,
Yeah,
so I have to make the playoffs because I traded it for a ninth pick. So
yeah. Well, I'm. We're not even going to talk about me right now. Just we talked about me enough already. So one other question that I thought about this in pre-show before you actually jumped into it. And since you are Mr. 200 or the newest member of the 200 Club, for the teams that are struggling, such as myself and other teams that have one victory or two victories for this season, and we talked about it a little bit when we had Richard on our show at week one, I believe it was. And I'm going to ask you, since you're the newest member of the club, what is it that you see that these teams that are at 0 and 6, 1 and 5, 2 and 4, Not really going to mention the 3-3 teams, but the 0-6, 1-5, 2-4. What are they doing wrong? Is it I think for some teams, could it be just the players that they have on their roster? Could it be the plays that they're picking? Could it be the play calling selection, how they're going through with it? I mean, you've won all these games, so you have an insight of the proper way to do it. What are we all doing? What are those guys, including myself, what are we doing wrong?
Well, I will give you the advice that Rich gave me way back when. One, don't worry too much about your profile. Get your profile set. Don't change it too much. Um, Worry about the plans. Try to get the plays that are going to work against the people you're playing. Um, the thing he said is work on defense more than anything else. Don't worry as much about offense. Um,
Mm-hmm.
my my biggest thing is keep it simple. Don't do a lot of changing. Don't do a lot of things. I can tell you, I was pulling 500, running a default um, profile um, close to 500 um, without not changing my profile at all season, a couple years. So I mean, I was basically just emailing Rich saying run the same thing every week. So
You're saying the
there isn't
profile, not the game plan, but the
no
profile.
both. My whole PPP was just go with it, and I was like 7 or 8 wins. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I mean, it's so if you took the time to scout me, you would have easily been able to decide what I was doing. I mean, I've been running it for 10, 12 weeks about that week, that part in the season. So I mean, I've been running the same thing since the beginning of the season, and I was still doing well against teams. Um, and you see that with the open teams. I mean, they give you the profile, and we still struggle to beat them. So it's just taking the time. Don't overthink it. And I generally only change my game plan. The only thing I've been really changing this season is mainly my game plan. I really haven't touched my profile that much. Um, the only teams that I ever seen that really do it a lot is I think Dean does it more than most from what I've seen, but um, Justin does it a lot. Justin's one of the ones you have a hard time scouting because he can. It's like he completely changes his profile and plan on a dime, and it's like you just run into it. But most
Mm-hmm.
people don't. So you know basically what it is, and just try to find plays that work against them. Um, a lot of times I just don't even sim. I just look at the log files and find what plays work that worked well against the other team, and I just run those.
Okay. Um, so, Dean, let's get your take on it. You're not, you're working your way up. I mean, you've had way better success than me. So, what would you like to add to that?
Well, that's exactly what Steve did against me in that Super Bowl. He had some work obligation where he only had a couple days to prepare, like Thursday and Friday of that week, and he did something that was pretty smart. He looked at all the log files of my team over the season. And he identified the defensive plays that worked best against my team and the offensive plays that worked best against my team.
Mm-hmm.
And he used a lot of those. And even though I thought I had changed up myself quite a bit for the Super Bowl, apparently I didn't change up enough. What he put in place worked
Mm-hmm.
very well. So yeah, I think sometimes maybe some teams, I mean, I know I've changed at times, but some teams might try to change their profile too much. And I guess you can do that. And apparently, James mentioned Chicago, mentioned Justin doing that.
Mm-hmm.
But that is kind of risky. And it's a risk reward kind of thing. You can take some chances, and those risks don't, pan out very well.
Right.
Um, I think with plays, though, I think it makes sense to change the game plans more, depending on what team you play and what works and what doesn't work against different teams. And that's because the other teams you play, they're using different game plans and profiles, and they have different player talent on their roster. So I think if you just a lot of times get too predictable, it depends on who you're playing against. Some people scout better than others, and I think some people put a lot of effort into scouting, and others don't do much of it. But if you're playing against someone who does a lot of scouting and scouts you very well, and you don't change, you may be looking forward to losing.
Right. All right. Hopefully that little insight might help you guys out. Obviously, it's a little bit snippet, but definitely just trying to find some kind of way to help those guys out to get better moving forward. So, as we come into our week 7 games, um, some interesting games coming up. I think there's a couple games over there that maybe the spreads definitely are a little bit too large. I think James mentioned there could have been a couple games there that could be basically a pick 'em game. But overall, I think the competition is going to be pretty good this week. So, um, if you guys are ready to go, we are going to jump into this. I do not have the overall week's numbers up. I haven't had them put up yet, but they will be back for the next week's show. So we
Well, I
will.
know it's 0-6 on lead pipe locks at this point.
Let's see the lead pipe lock. See, I don't have those added in as well, so I don't have them yet. Um, so I got to add those in. I am. Let's see. Yeah. No, you had a lead pipe lock. You won. You got one of them right. I believe that was on. Yeah, week 4. You got it right. You picked New England.
Pretty good.
Yep.
Well, how did I get it
So
wrong? Oh,
I
well.
don't have. Like I
I
said,
guess
I do what now?
I'm only 1-5.
Yeah, like I said, I don't have the numbers. I didn't get it. Didn't get the time to crunch all those in, so I'll give a revised one on next week's show. So, but going into the week 7 games, we're starting with the first one for week 7. We have Kansas City going into play in Minnesota, and Rich's Sportsbooks is giving Kansas City 6.5. We are going to start with you, James.
Um, Vikings have been playing everybody close this year. The only team that's beaten by more than one score has been Kansas City, but I don't think that's going to happen this time. I think the Vikings are actually going to pull this one out.
Oh, calling for the upset. Okay. Oh, and also we have our lead pipe lock, so I forgot to mention that in there. So, and I'm gonna have some fun with this one. So, because Mitch is out, you are making the picks for Mitch. So Mitch just went against his team. Perfect. I love it. I love that one. We're gonna have some fun with that one next week, Dean. Dean, who are you taking?
I think this is going to be a close game. I think that spread is too large. I don't quite see Minnesota holding on to a lead here and winning, so I think it's going to be a very close Kansas City win, but they definitely are not going to win by a touchdown. It's going to be much closer than that.
All right. Um, I'm gonna go ahead and like I always say, I'm gonna split the baby on this one. I'm gonna go for Kansas City on this one. Um, my mind tells me I should go with Minnesota because Mitch is on vacation. I don't think his wife is gonna let him work on it while he's on vacation, but you never know. He may be, when everybody's sleeping, he might go sneak off into the bathroom and work on his profiles and stuff. So I think he's going to be doing that.
And you usually I see the image of Mitch sitting in the pot with his laptop working in game plans. It's just,
Yeah, he'll be sitting. I was going to say he was going to be underneath the blanket doing his working on it, but nah, I wanted to needle him a little bit more. So yeah, that's what. Or he'll be sitting in the car trying to do it at nighttime while everybody's sleeping. He'll sneak outside and sit in the car. So if you guys didn't want to have that first visual of him on the porcelain throne, I'll just say he was in the car. So, and I know he's going to be listening to the show this week. So, Mitch, that's for you. Next game, we have the New York Jets hosting Vegas, and they are giving Vegas the big. Well, they're giving Vegas a tough hill to climb. as they give the Jets 13.5. Dean, what do we got?
Oh, yeah, I'm going to predict there are going to be zero block punts in this game. And I'm going to predict that the Las Vegas offense isn't going to show up and that the Jets defense is going to show up. And Jets are definitely going to win by more than 2 touchdowns, and they will cover the spread.
All right. James, what do you got?
Exact same thing. This is not even going to be close. The Jets are going to win.
Okay. I will continue right along with you guys, and I will call ditto on that as well. Um, I'm calling on the Jets to win this game as well, and probably bust that spread as well. So next game we have Washington going in to play Anaheim. They are giving Washington 14.5. James, what do you got?
It's being played in sunny LA, so it won't be rain, so the Redskins are going to dominate. They'll cover the spread easy.
Okay. Dean.
I would caution anyone on underestimating Shuggy. But the Redskins are very good, and they will be tough, and they will win this game, but not by 14.5. I say the spread will not be covered, but it will be a Washington win.
Okay. I will concur with that. I will go with the Washington victory as well, but the spread's going to be much, much closer than that. Next game we have LA LA hosting the Giants. They are giving the Giants 10 and they're giving LA, sorry, giving LA 10.5. Dean.
Yeah, you might say that this spread looks large too, but I think that the Chargers are going to win and cover the spread, and I'm even going to put a lead pipe lock on this.
Okay. And we have our first lead pipe lock of the game of the show. All right. James, what do you have?
I think the Giants are a lot better than what people think they are. I agree with Dean that the Chargers probably will not win by 10.5, but I think the Chargers will win.
Okay, going with the Chargers as well. I will go along with you guys as well. Keep the agreement train going. I'm going to be picking LA on this one as well. It's hard for me to go with that spread. I want to say it's going to be a closer game, but yeah, I'll say it's LA will win, but it'll be by a much closer spread, probably 4.5. So next game we have Pittsburgh hosting Atlanta, and they are giving Pittsburgh 7.5. James, what do you got?
This is one of the games I thought could have been a pick 'em. I have not seen a real impressive win by Pittsburgh. Now, Atlanta hasn't done much either. I'm going to go with Atlanta, and I'm going to put a lead pipe lock on it.
Okay. Dean, what do you got?
Okay. At the risk of sounding like Coach Olson, I'm not playing that shit. This Pittsburgh team is a lot better than I think a lot of folks realize. And they're playing at home.
Mm-hmm.
And they're playing the tough AFC West where they need every win they can get. And they're tied for first place, or I believe they're tied for first place, or a game behind. Oh, they were tied. But I think it's going to be a very close game. I think a close Atlanta win is going to happen, but it's definitely not going to be by 7.5.
The Steelers are favored by 7.5. So
Right.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Atlanta win, but much closer spread. Okay. I will agree with you guys as well. I'm looking at both of them, the standings of both teams, but I think that your prep is just going to be slightly better, not by a lot, but slightly better, and Atlanta's going to take this one. Next game we have Jacksonville hosting Detroit, and they are giving Detroit 6.5. Dean, we're going to start with you.
Is this what they call the letdown after the big game the previous week? I think Detroit will win this and cover the spread.
Okay. Coach, what's your team going to do this week?
I think it's going to be a lot closer than 6.5, but I think Detroit will pull it out. Jacksonville has played quite a few teams tough.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to agree on this one. It's going to be a close game, but I give the nod to Detroit this week. Next game we have Indianapolis hosting Chicago. They are giving Chicago 13 and a half. James.
Um, I hate to sound like a broken record, but I think the spread's too low. I think the Cardinals will easily cover the spread.
Okay. Dean.
I think this reflects the tough schedule that a team like Indianapolis gets when they make the playoffs. They're playing all these really good teams this year. I don't see how they can win this game. I think Chicago does win and cover the spread in this one.
Okay. I will agree with you guys again on this one, and I will be going with Chicago for the win this week. Coming down to our last two games, we have the rematch or the rivalry between New Orleans and San Francisco. They are giving New Orleans 6.5. Dean.
Yeah, I think the Saints won it more badly this week, or won it more, and they're playing at home, and I think they'll win and cover the spread.
Okay. James, what do you got?
This is another one I would have thought should have been a pick 'em. I'm going to go with the Niners.
Woohoo! Okay, interesting. Uh, Division rival. I'm in the same division. I can't see. I'm looking up and I can't see either one of them right now. So, I am going to lean towards New Orleans on this one, and I am going to put my chips in on this one for a lead pipe lock with New Orleans this week. Last game that we have for week 7, we have one of the top dogs in the AFC versus one of the basement dwellers in the NFC. We have New England hosting Seattle. They are giving New England 4.5. Last game of the week. We're going to start with you, James. What do you got?
Um, understand why the Patriots are favored, but I think Seattle's been playing tough. I think Seattle started turning the corner this week. I'm going to go with Seattle on the upset.
Okay. Dean, what you got?
I think we're looking at let's see, New England is what, 4-2 now.
4-2.
Weakest 4-2 team in the league playing against the best 0-6 team in the league, and yeah, I think I agree with James. Seattle's going to turn the corner here and win this game. This will be an upset, but I think it'll happen.
Okay, so I can play the Lou Holtz role, but I'm not. I'm just saying that it has to get better somewhere along the way between all three phases, the players and the coaching staff. We got to turn this corner, and we're looking to do it this week. And it's just missing those little, just kind of get those fine details in place. So obviously, you know who I'm going with. Go Hawks. So that's how we're going to do it. All right. So as we come in to wrap this show up, definitely would like to thank James for coming on to the show, filling in this week, and giving us his input and insight. As always, thank Dean for coming in and doing what he does. Thank Steve from doing his video setups and getting the video to you guys so you can see all of that. So as we come in to wrap this up, James, any final words or comments or pearls of wisdom that you have, sir?
Nope. Just be careful going for it on fourth down. Don't be a riverboat gambler.
Okay. Well, sometimes being a riverboat gambler is kind of good, though.
I'm probably the gutsiest play caller in the thing. I go for it more than most, and I'm the big 2 point conversion person. So, um,
Okay.
and I'm just saying, be careful.
All righty. Dean, any final words that you have, and you get to kick off Mitch's slogan at the end. So, any final
Yeah,
words or idea or comments that you have?
yeah. As I said earlier, I think some teams are gambling too much on fourth down, and I think the defensive coaches out there, I'd like to see y'all put a little more effort into stopping those and punishing the teams that gamble too much. But other than that, there's only one thing left to do, and let's get it.